Good morning, students. In last class, we have discussed about the conduction, that is the conduction zone, where we have studied the nostrils, a pair of nostrils, nostrils to the pharynx, pharynx to the larynx. In the larynx, we are having the larynx is also called as the voice box. Why it is called as the voice box means here the vocal cords are presenting. So due to the presence of the vocal cords, that means the vocal cords, due to the vibration of the vocal cords, here the sound is producing. So that here this larynx is also called as the voice box. That means voice is produced from the due to the presence of the larynx only. Likewise in birds, if you see in a birds, here we are having the syrinx is presenting. Syrinx. In birds, here the birds will consist of a syrinx, where the syrinx we can call as the voice box for the birds. Likewise, for due to the presence of syrinx, here the birds can able to produce the sounds. Likewise, here on our body in humans will consist of due to the vibration of the vocal cords, here voice is produced. Due to this, here it is called as the voice box also. And also here in the studied in the prominent, we are having a thyroid cartilage is presenting, where in males is more prominent than the females. So the thyroid cartilage which is present in more in a prominent, we can call that as an Adam's apple. This Adam's apple is more prominent in the males than the females. And also here the trachea is made up of that is made up of 16 to 20 C-shaped cartilages are made up of C-shaped cartilages, where that trachea is divided into two structures called as the bronchi. This is called as bronchi, where this bronchi will be divided into primary, from primary to the this is the primary, and this is called as a secondary, and this is called as a tertiary. At the tertiary end, will having a sac-like structures are presenting. That sac-like structures we can call them as the alveoli. We can call them as the alveoli. So here these alveoli, these are presenting, where here this is where we can call as a conducting zone up to the bronchi. Next, coming to the respiratory zone. So in the respiratory zone, here it includes, here the respiratory zone is mainly it is meant for exchanging of gases. It is mainly, that is respiratory zone is mainly meant for an exchanging of gases only. So it is called as a respiratory zone. So in the respiratory zone, we are having the structure that is called as the structure of the lungs. Here we are having the structure of lungs. So here in humans, the lungs are the respiratory organs. In humans, the lungs are the respiratory organs, where through the lungs here it helpful for, it performs two functions. It purifies the blood. It purifies the blood, and also it helpful for the exchanging of gases, that is carbon dioxide as well as the carbon dioxide, oxygen as well as the carbon dioxide. Here the exchanging of materials are taken place. So here the lungs are the respiratory organs present in the vertebrates, that is in humans, including humans also. So here a pair of lungs are presenting. Coming to this, here a diagrammatic representation, if you see here, this is a structure of a lungs. This is a structure of a lung, a structure of a lungs. So here it is a diagrammatic a representation. So it is a diagram where we'll having the lungs, where the lungs are a pair of lungs are presenting, a pair of lungs are presenting on either side of the chest cavity, on either side of the chest cavity, on either side of the chest cavity or a thoracic cavity. It is also, that means this region we can call as the chest cavity, or otherwise we can call that as the thoracic cavity. So due to the presence of this, that means here lungs are presenting on the thoracic or a chest cavity, a pair. That means two lungs are presenting on either side of the chest cavity. And also here the lungs are protected by four structures. Here lungs is protected by either ventrally or ventrally, dorsally, or sides, that is lateral sides, or otherwise by the below the chest cavity. So here below the, that means the chest cavity and abdomen cavity is differentiated with a structure called as the diaphragm. What is the diaphragm means? It is a layer which differentiate. It is the diaphragm will differentiate the diaphragm. Diaphragm is differentiate or divided or differentiate the chest differentiate thoracic and abdominal cavities. Abdominal cavity, that means it is divided. That means it is presenting in between the chest cavity and the abdomen cavity. So this diaphragm will differentiate. The upper regions is called as a thoracic cavity, and the lower region is called as an abdominal cavity. And also here in the diaphragm, here it consists of diaphragm is consists of skeletal muscles. It is consists of skeletal muscles. It is made up of that is the diaphragm is that means it differentiate the upper thoracic as well as the lower and abdominal cavity. And also here the two lungs which are presenting on either side, the space where the presenting between the two lungs is called as where the heart is presenting. This means in between the two lungs the heart is presenting. That space present between the heart is called as mediastinum. This region is called as the mediastinum. Is called as mediastinum. What is mediastinum? And the space present between the two lungs where the heart is presenting, that region we can call as the mediastinum. And also here the ventral, that means on the dorsal surface, it is consist of the vertebrae or vertebral column is presenting on the ventral surface. On ventral surface it is surrounded by a sternum. Ventral surface it is surrounded by a sternum, and the sides are surrounded by the ribs. That means here the sides is surrounded by the ribs, and the lower surface it is surrounded by the diaphragm. Here these are the four structures. These are the four structures which protects the lungs from the different regions. That means lower side will having the diaphragm is presenting on the ventral surface, on the back of the, that means neck, that is back side which is presenting, that is dorsal surface. The dorsal surface is surrounded by the vertebral column or vertebrae, And the sternum, that means on the ventral surface, this is called as ventral surface, where it is surrounded by the sternum, and the sides will consist of ribs are presenting, where here the four sides are surrounded by the four sides. That means this lungs are protected by four structures. Lower surface is called as the diaphragm, and dorsal surface is covered by the protected by vertebral column, and the sides are protected by the ribs, and the ventral surface is protected by the sternum. And also here the lungs which are presenting, it is made up of a double membrane wall. That double membrane wall which is surrounding the double membrane wall. That means the lungs is surrounded by a double membrane wall. That double membrane wall is called as a pleural membrane. We can call as a pleural membrane. It is called as a pleural membrane. It is what is pleural membranes? It is a double ventral. That means double layered or double layered membrane or double membrane which is surrounded by the lungs is called as a pleural membrane, where it is a differentiated outer. It is a differentiated into outer visceral layer. It is a differentiated. It is a differentiated outer visceral layer. And inner, it is called as the pleural. It is called as parietal layer. It is a parietal, parietal layer. So inner layer is called as a visceral layer, and outer layer is called as the parietal layer. That means the surrounding, that means the lungs are surrounded by a double membrane wall is called as a pleural membrane. This pleural membrane is differentiated into two layers. Outer layer is called as a visceral layer, and inner layer is called as a parietal layer. In between outer and inner layer will having a cavity is presenting. That cavity is called as a pleural cavity. So this pleural cavity is filled with a fluid called as a fluid, where this pleural fluid will perform the functions, that is a pleural fluid. The pleural fluid the pleural fluid, that means here a pleural membrane, double membrane, it is a double membrane, where it is divided into outer visceral layer and inner parietal layer. So in between will having the space. That space is called as the pleural fluid, that is pleural cavity. That means between this cavity will having a pleural cavity. The pleural cavity will filled with a fluid called as a pleural fluid. This pleural fluid will act as protects. That means this pleural fluid will protect. What is the function of pleural fluid? Means it protects the lungs from the mechanical shocks. The main function of it prevents the lungs, lungs from mechanical shocks. It helpful for the preventing of lungs, that is from the mechanical shocks. It prevents the lungs from the mechanical shocks, and also it gives a frictionless movements. It gives and also gives a friction, and also will give a frictionless moments. And also it gives the frictionless moments also will give, along with it prevents the mechanical shocks, as well as it gives a frictionless moments can be produced by the pleural membranes. And if it is the inflammation of pleural membrane, inflammation inflammation of pleural membrane is called as a pleurisy. So what is a pleurisy means the inflammation of the pleural membrane. Inflammation means becoming redness. When it is in viral infections or bacterial infections, here it becomes redness. The redness of becoming the redness, that means the pleural membrane will become redness. That becoming redness, this condition we can call as inflammation. When inflammation is taken place of the membrane, that is a pleural membrane, this condition we can call as the pleurisy. We can call as a pleurisy. And here it consists of, when coming to the structure of the lungs, here we will having epiglottis. Diagram will having upper region will having epiglottis. Already we know that what is epiglottis means. It is a lid-like fibroelastic layer or cartilage which is presenting above the glottis, which prevents the entry of food particles into the nasal cavity. After that, we will having hyaloid cartilages as well as the thyroid cartilage, and it is having tracheas are presenting. The trachea is divided into two bronchus, and here lungs. Here lungs are two type of lungs. That is a pair of lungs are presenting. That is right and left lungs. Here right lung is divided into three regions. Here it is divided into three regions, where the left lung is divided into two regions. Here right lung is very large and having these are spongy and elastic in nature. The lungs which are presenting, they are spongy and elastic in nature. They are an elastic in nature, where the right lung is divided. The right lung is divided into three lobes. It is divided into three lobes. One is called as an superior. First one, a superior, a middle lobe, superior lobe, middle lobe, and this last one is an inferior lobe. So here right lung is divided into three regions. One is called as the superior lobe, a middle lobe, and also the inferior lobes. But here the left lung is divided into two lobes. One is called as the superior lobe, superior, and the second one is an inferior. Here the right lung is larger than the left lung. Why means here left lung is very short. So here also it is divided into, in between these in the left lung, here the heart is position is taken place. So it is very smaller than the right lung, and also it is the right lung is divided into three lobes and left lung is divided into two lobes. And also here the bronchi which is divided, the bronchus which is divided, here it is divided, the bronchi it is divided into primary bronchus, from primary to the secondary bronch. And also here the right lobe will having three lobes. That means three primary bronchus are divided, but here it is having two primary bronchus. That means it is divided into two bronchus. Here three bronchus are presenting, and also here it is divided into primary bronchi, secondary, and a tertiary bronchus. Now later we will discuss, that is a respiratory tree, that we will discuss later. First coming to this here, the lungs. Lungs, that means from the heart to the lungs. Here lungs will it carries, that means from the lungs will purifies the blood. It purifies the blood. What is the deoxygenated blood? What is the deoxygenated blood which is presenting in the that is in the heart, that is in the right atrium, that are right side of the heart, while having a deoxygenated blood that is carried by the a pulmonary artery. That means all arteries are carries pure blood, but except the pulmonary artery will carries the deoxygenated blood from the heart. That is carried, deoxygenated blood is carried by the primary artery into the lungs. In the lungs, the blood is purified. So in the blood, the lungs, that means in the lungs, in lungs, what is the blood is purified? That again the purified, that is oxygenated blood. The oxygenated blood is carried by the 4 pulmonary veins. Here all veins are carries deoxygenated blood, but except the pulmonary artery. The pulmonary artery will carries the oxygenated blood from lungs to the heart. So by 4 pulmonary veins, by the 4 pulmonary veins, it carries the oxygenated blood is carried from lungs to the heart, where that is taken place. That is, so here the blood is purified. The blood is purified in the lungs, that is in both right and left lung, where here that deoxygenated blood is carried by the pulmonary artery and oxygenated blood is carried by the pulmonary veins. So what are that now detailedly will be discussed. So here the oxygenated blood, the deoxygenated blood, the deoxygenated blood is carried by pulmonary artery and oxygenated blood is carried by the pulmonary veins. It is carried by the pulmonary veins, and also here when the lungs, then when means the bronchi is divided, when the bronchus is enters, the trachea is divided into 2 structures. They are called as the bronchi, that is right and left bronchus. It is divided, that means when the bronchus, that the trachea enters into the lungs, that region is called as, this region is called as the bronchi. Is called as the bronchi. This bronchi is divided into right and left bronchi. So that right and left bronchus which are enters into the lungs, again this first, that is left primary bronchi is divided into the left primary bronchi is divided into 2 secondary bronchus. The left primary bronchi is divided into 2 secondary bronchus, 2 secondary bronchi. Likewise, the right primary bronchi is divided into 3 secondary bronchis. And again this secondary bronchis will be either, it may be that is either left or right. Secondary bronchi is divided into a tertiary bronchis. Again the tertiary bronchis, is divided into bronchioles, terminal bronchioles. The tertiary bronchi is divided into bronchioles, terminal bronchioles and respiratory bronchioles. So here this condition we can call as this is called as the that is a bronchial tree. It is called as the bronchi. bronchiole or bronchial tree. That means tree means here it is divided into branches. Here it is a bronchial tree means it is divided into primary, secondary and tertiary. Here the bronchi is divided into primary. Again primary is divided into tertiary, and the tertiary is divided into secondary is divided into tertiary. The tertiary divided into a bronchioles, a terminal bronchioles, as well as the respiratory bronchiole. So total this is called as a bronchial tree. What is bronchial tree means? When the bronchus which enters into the lungs, it divides into a branches like a structure where it is divided to primary, from primary to secondary, secondary to tertiary, from tertiary to it is divided into bronchioles, terminal bronchioles, as well as the respiratory bronchioles. So this process is called as the bronchial tree. This is called as a bronchial tree. At the end of the tertiary bronchi, at the end of the tertiary bronchi will have where it is divided into bronchioles, terminal bronchioles and respiratory bronchioles. At the end of tertiary bronchioles will having a sac-like structures are presenting. That sac-like structures which are presenting are called as the alveoli. A sac, that means at the end of tertiary bronchi will having a sac-like structures are presenting. That sac-like structures which are presenting, we can call them as the alveoli. So here these are a cup-shaped structures, or a sac-like structures are presenting, that are called as the alveoli. Best example here, a bunch of the grapes. Now bunch under grapes, if you see in the grapes, how the grapes are presenting like attachment from primary, secondary, tertiary, and tertiary will having a bulb-like structures are presenting the grapes. Likewise here same type will be presenting at the terminal bronchi will having a sac-like structures are presenting. They are called as the alveoli, where these alveoli are a structural alveoli. Alveoli are the structural and functional units of these are the structural and functional units of lungs. These are the structural and functional units of lungs. These are that means alveoli are the structural as well as the functional units of the lungs. We can call them as the structural and a functional unit of the lungs are the alveoli, where here these alveoli are here in these alveoli only. Here in the alveoli it helpful for the exchanging of gases. The exchange of gases are taken place in the alveoli, so that it gives a definite structure for the lungs, as well as it helpful for the exchanging of gases. It helpful for the exchanging of gases. So here alveoli are called as the structural, where it provides a definite structure for the lungs, and also here functional means here it helpful for the exchanging of gases. That is main two functions. That is so that here alveoli are the structural and a functional unit of the alveoli. These are the structural and functional units. Now coming to the each bronchi, how it is taken place. That means in a tertiary, that is in a tertiary bronchi divided into bronchioles, terminal bronchioles and respiratory bronchioles. From the respiratory bronchioles, here it having a sac-like that is divided into divisions. Will consist of 2 to 6 lobe-like structures are presenting a sac-like structures. That means here will having 2 to 11 or 2 to 10 alveolar ducts are presenting. So what are that now will be discussed. Now coming to the each respiratory bronchis, each respiratory bronchioles, Each respiratory bronchioles is divided into 2 to 11 ducts are presenting. They are called as an alveolar ducts. These alveolar ducts which are presenting will consist of the structures. They are called as an atrium. Atria will having structures called as atrium, or it called as an infundibulum. It is called as, that means will having each respiratory bronchi is divided into 2 to 11 alveolar ducts. These alveolar ducts, the alveolar ducts dilates into an atrium. It is dilates into the atrium or an infundibulum. So when it is infundibulum, here in atrium, each atrium is made up of, that means each atrium or infundibulum is made up of a sac-like structure, or a cup-shaped structure, or a cup-shaped structure called as the alveoli, or we can call them as the air sacs. We can call them as the air sacs. That means here we are having an infundibulum, a sac-like structures are presenting that are called as alveoli, or otherwise we can call them as the air sacs. So here these air sacs is the diameter of the air sacs is the diameter of the air sacs is 0.2 millimeter, where here it is made up of the squamous and epithelial cells. Squamous, that means these alveolar sacs is lined by the squamous and epithelial cells. The cells. That means these alveoli, diameter of alveoli is 2.0 millimeters, and it is made up of, it is having the squamous epithelial cells on the basement. A membrane will consist of the squamous epithelial cells, and this squamous epithelial present in this squamous epithelial cells, it consists of specialized cells. They are called as the pneumatocytes. These are having in present of these squamous epithelial consists of the pneumatocytes, where it secretes a substance called as the surfactant, where it is produce a substance called as the surfactant. What is the function of this surfactant? Means it prevents the collapsing of the air sacs inside the lungs. So here there are many air sacs are presenting, so they may be collapsed. So due to this collapse it may damage. So due to the surfactant, it secretes, that means pneumatocytes will produce a detergent like a substance. It secretes a detergent. Detergent like a substance is secreted, that is called as surfactant, where this substance is helpful for the preventing of the collapsing of the alveoli. It prevents the collapse. It prevents the collapse of the alveoli. It prevents the collapse of the alveoli. That is the main function of the surfactant. Where in these surfactant, that means alveoli which are presenting in each lung, that means in each lung consists of 300 millions of alveoli. 300 millions of alveoli are presenting, where in each lung will consist of 300 millions of alveoli are presenting, where these are the structural and functional units of lungs. So, what are alveoli means? These are the structural and functional units of the lungs. When these all alveoli are placed in one by one, here it can able to produce 70 square kilometers. That means here it can able to, when producing it can able to, that means if there are alveoli are squared in a line, here it can able to 70 square kilometers it can able to produce. So that here the alveoli, that means inside the sacs like structures which are presenting, that is the terminal bronchi, that is the respiratory bronchi. That means terminal bronchi is divided into bronchioles, terminal bronchioles, from terminal bronchioles to the respiratory bronchioles. At the respiratory bronchiole will consist of a sac-like structure or cup-shaped structures are presenting. They are called as alveoli, where these are the structural and functional units of the lungs. And also here each lung will consist of 300 millions of alveoli are presenting, where in these alveoli are helpful for the exchanging of gases. These are helpful for an exchanging of gases. So, due to the exchanging of gases here, these are called as the structural and functional units of the lungs. This is about the structure of the lung. That is, this is a diagram where it is a very important diagram for the theory. So, you have to practice this diagram. Next, coming to the next one, if you see in that is the mechanism of breathing, how the breathing will be taken place. That is an inspiration as well as the expression, how is taken place. Now, we will be discussed that one. Next, coming to the mechanism of breathing. Mechanism of breathing. So, here in the mechanism of breathing, it is mainly it is helpful for exchanging of gases between the lungs and the environment. Here exchanging of gases, exchanging of gases between lungs and the surrounding environment. Surrounding an environment. So, this process is called as the mechanism of breathing, where this mechanism of breathing is taken place by the two factors. The two factors are, first one is called as the pressures. And the second one is called as the muscles. So, here the first one is pressures and the second one is muscles. So, here there are three types of pressures are presenting. The pressures. So, here pressures are, first one is atmospheric pressure. Atmospheric pressure, and the second one is intrapulmonary pressure. And the third one is intrapleural pressure. So, these are the three types of muscle, that is pressures. One is an atmospheric pressure, and the second one is that is intrapulmonary pressure and intrapleural. So, here atmospheric pressure, it is a pressure exerted by an atmosphere. It is in lemon indicating it is a pressure exerted by and surrounding air on the body. It is a pressure. It is a pressure exerted. It is a pressure exerted by the atmosphere atmosphere surrounding in the body, atmospheric, that is, it is a pressure exerted by the atmosphere in the surrounding body, surrounding the body. So that pressure, that means the pressure is exerting the atmospheric air, pressure, the pressure exerted by the atmosphere on the body. On the body, the pressure is exerting, that pressure is surrounded by the body, that is called as an atmospheric pressure. This atmospheric pressure will be in, it is in the 760 millimeter per an Hg it is presenting. The atmospheric pressure is 760 millimeter, it decreases, it is 760 millimeter Hg it is presenting, it decreases, it decreases and increase in altitudes. It decreases and increase in altitude. That means when you going into the up into the air, when you are going into the up into the air, that means increasing the altitudes, the atmospheric pressure will be gradually decreases. So that is mainly, that is, it is a pressure exerted by the atmosphere on the surrounding the body. On the body it is exerting, that pressure is called as atmospheric pressure, where it is a 760 millimeter per Hg, and it decreases in increase in altitudes. And here the intrapulmonary pressure, it is a pressure, it is a pressure exerted, it is a pressure exerted, it is a pressure exerted by the lungs, here within the lung, it is a pressure exerted by the lungs, that is within the lungs, that means the pressure which is exerted within the lungs, that pressure is called as the intra, means inside. Intra means inside, that means it is the pressure exerted inside the lungs, that pressure is called as the atmosphere, that is intrapulmonary pressure. This intrapulmonary pressure is equal to an atmospheric pressure, so that it is also the 760 millimeter per Hg it is presenting, where it is a positive pressure. So here it is equal, that means intrapulmonary pressure is equal to an atmospheric pressure, that is 760 millimeter per Hg. Next, pleural pressure. It is a pressure exerted by the pleural membranes. It is a pressure exerted within the pleural membranes. It is a pressure exerted, it is a pressure exerted by the pleural membrane. So that pressure which is exerted by pleural membrane is called as intrapleural pressure, where it is a 756 millimeter per Hg. It is a 756 millimeter per Hg it is presenting. So these are the three pressures. One is an atmospheric pressure, and second one is intrapulmonary pressure, and the third one is intrapleural pressure. And here muscles, here two type of muscles are presenting. One is called as ribs, and second one is called as the diaphragm. So in ribs will consist of an external costal muscles, these are present, that is external, internal costal muscles are presenting in the ribs. And the diaphragm, it consists of the phrenic muscles are presenting in the diaphragm. What is diaphragm means? It is a dome shaped structure. What is diaphragm means? It is a dome shaped. It is a dome shaped structure where it is differentiate upper thoracic and lower and abdominal regions. So in the diaphragm will consist of muscles. That muscles are called as the phrenic muscles. So these are the two muscles, that is ribs. In ribs will consist of external costal muscles are presenting, and in a diaphragm will consist of the phrenic muscles. So due to the pressures and muscles, here it helpful for the exchanging of gases, that is inspiration and an expiration. So here inspiration, it is the mechanism of breathing is differentiated into two regions, two types. One is inspiration and also expiration. Inspiration means inspire. Inspire means taking off the air, the surrounding air into the body. And expiration means leaving off the air present in the body to the leaving outside to the environment or in surrounding air. It is called as an expiration. How it is taken place now will be discussed this one. So here the mechanism of breathing is taken place by the two process. One is called as an inspiration, and second one is the expiration. Second one is expiration. So inspiration and expiration is taken place by pressures as well as the muscles, that is the phrenic muscles as well as external intercostal muscles which are present in the ribs. So now coming to the three, that is the first one, inspiration. Inspiration means taking off, it is an active process. It is an active process where here the taking off air into the body. That means from the surrounding, from the atmosphere, that means from surrounding environment. From the surrounding environment, here the air enters into the body, that is taking off air into the body is called as an inspiration, where it is an active process. Active process means here we are using some amount of energy we are using. If you use energy, that process is called as an active process. Without using of energy, that process is called as the passive process. So here we are using some amount of energy we are using to taking the air into the body. So here it is called as an active process, so that is taking of air into the body. So here once it is taken place, the phrenic muscles, here the phrenic muscles which are present in a diaphragm, that is diaphragm. Here diaphragm is in the form of a dome shaped. It is in the form of a dome shape. Dome shape means an U-shaped structure it is presenting, where when it is contracted, here the diaphragm will becomes into the flat. It becomes into the flat. That means here when phrenic muscles are contracted, when it is contracted, that means in the phrenic muscles which are present in diaphragm that are contracted, and U-shaped or C-shaped diaphragm is converted into a flat shaped structure, where here in the ribs, the muscles which are present in that is external costal muscles. Here in ribs, it consists of an external intercostal muscles. Here what happens, these muscles are helpful for contracted. Here it increases the chest cavity. That ribs will helpful for increases the chest cavity. When it increases the chest cavity, here what happens, the dome shaped structure diaphragm will becomes to the flat shaped, and also here that pleural, that means the pleural membrane which is presenting, the pleural pressure which is presenting, that pleural pressure will becomes a 750 to 754. It becomes to the that means here what happens, intrapulmonary pressure. Here an intrapulmonary pressure. Intrapulmonary pressure will be a decrease from 760 to 756 millimeter per Hg, and also here it becomes into the an intrapleural pressure, intrapleural pressure will becomes 756 will becomes to the 754 will decreases from 754 millimeter per and Hg it is decreases. Here decreases, these are decreases. Why means here the volume is increasing. Here the volume is increased. If volume is increased, here the pressures are decreases. The pressures are decreases. So due to the volume is here, the thoracic cavity is increased, the volume is increasing, so the pressures are decreases, where here from the pulmonary pressure, intrapulmonary pressure within the lungs, what is the pressure is presenting will decrease from 760 to 754, where here intrapleural pressure also will decreases from 756 to the 754, where the air is rushed, that means due to the pressure decreases the pressure, volume is increasing, pressure is decreasing. What happens here, the air, the atmospheric enters into the body up to the an atmosphere pressure will becomes unequal. That means here the atmospheric pressure will be 760 millimeter per Hg. Up to that level is becomes here the process will be an increase. That means the process will be taken place where the air enters into the body. So this process is called as an inspiration, where here in these what happens, the taking of air into the body, where diaphragm is contracted, the diaphragm is contracted, the dome shape will becomes into the a flat shaped. The dome shape will becomes into a flat shaped, and also the ribs, the external costal muscles and external intercostal muscles are contracted. The increase the thoracic cavity. When thoracic cavity, the volume is increases, the pressures are decreases, so that here the 760 to 756, from 756 to the 754, the pressures are decreased up to the, it becomes to the an atmospheric pressure, the air will rush into the body. So this type of process is called as an inspiration. That means taking of air. When you take the air, the volume is increases. When volume is increases, the pressures are decreased, the air enters into the body. So this process is called as an inspiration. Understanding? Next, coming to the second one, an expiration. Here the expiration, it is a passive process. It is a passive process. Passive process means here no energy is not utilized. In the active process we are using energy, but in passive process here no energy is utilized. So here it is a process, that means leaving off the air from into the surrounding, leaving off air into the surrounding or into the surrounding atmosphere or surrounding an environment. So this process is called as an expiration. So here in the phrenic muscles are relaxed. When they relaxed, here a dome shaped is big. Sorry. When they relaxed, here the flat shaped is becomes to the a dome shaped. It becomes to the a dome shaped, and also the ribs, that is external intercostal muscles are relaxed. What happens here, the volume is decreasing. Here the volume is decreases. The volume is here what happens, the volume is decreases. The volume is decreases. Then the pressures are increased. Here increased. That means volume is decreasing due to the relaxation of muscles. Due to the relaxation of muscles, here volume is decreasing. When volume is decreases, the pressures are increases. So here where from 756, that means from 754 to the 756, again they become to their original position. Here what happens, the pressures are decreasing. So here what happens, an inspiration, that means leaving of air. That means the air which is present in the body, again that enters into the atmosphere, where here the flat shaped dome is again comes into a dome shaped structure, and also the volume of the thoracic cavity will be gradually decreases. When volume is decreasing, the pressures are increases. Again, what is the pressure? That is intrapulmonary pressure and also intrapleural pressure. Intrapulmonary pressure, it becomes 756, again it becomes to the 760 millimeter per Hg. Likewise, intrapleural pressure from 754, again it becomes to the 756. So that what happens, again the air which is present in our body, again it goes outside to the atmosphere. Why means here the volume is increasing. Sorry, the volume is decreases and the pressures are increased. So due to the increasing of the pressures, due to the increasing pressure, the volume is decreasing. So the air will rushes from inside to the outside. So this process we can call as an expiration. Expiration means inhaling, that is exhaling of air into the surrounding environment. That means leaving of the air from the body to the environment, we can call as an expiration, that is called as exhalation of the air. An inspiration, inhalation of the air, that is taking off the atmospheric air into the body, we can call as an inspiration. So here when inspiration, the dome shape will become a flat shape, where the volumes are increases, volume is increases and pressures are decreases. And ribs are, when ribs are contracted, here what happens, inspiration, the volume is increasing. When volume is increases, the pressures are decreases. In expiration means leaving of air outside from body to the outer environment or surrounding an environment. Here what happens, the flat shaped diaphragm will becomes again to dome shaped, and means due to relaxation of muscles. So when relaxation, it flat shape will becomes to the dome shaped. Here the volume, the ribs volume is gradually decreases. The volume is decreasing. Here the pressures are increases. So here the air which is present inside, that will be taken outside into the environment. So this process is called as an expiration. So it is very important, that is inspiration and expiration. Here this process, that is how the mechanism of breathing. Here breathing means taking of air into the body, that is taking of oxygen into the body, where it passes to different parts of the body. Again from different parts, what is the carbon dioxide is presenting, again that is enters outside into the environment. So here this process is called, that means exchanging of gases. Here mainly it is taken place by exchanging of gases is taken place, where here it is takes place by the muscles as well as the pressures. Due to the pressures and muscles, here it takes place an inspiration and an expiration. So this is the mechanism of everything. So in next class we'll discuss how here it is taken place, that is external factors which are presenting, that is taken place, and also we'll discuss the transport of the carbon dioxide, how the oxygen and carbon dioxide are transported in our body. That will be discussed in the next class. Thank you.